Great, thanks, Antonia. Well, if you're joining us on the live stream, you may well be joining us now, and you're very, very welcome. It's great to have you with us. We're going to have our reading now. It's from James chapter 4, so whether you get that on your phone or grab a Bible, if you're grabbing a Bible, you'll find it on page 1215, and Ash is going to come and read that to us, and afterwards Matt will come and preach.
James chapter 4, submit yourselves to God. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire, but do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have, because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Or do you think Scripture says without reason that he jealously longs for the Spirit he has caused to dwell in us? But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says, God opposes the proud, but shows favour to the humble. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbour?
Hello. Thank you, Ash, for reading that passage for us. The question before us this evening is, how does Jesus soothe my anger? How does Jesus soothe my anger? I'm going to start by letting you in on a little staff team secret. Always good. So every staff team that I've ever been on, including this one here, normally what happens when we're thinking about what topics we're going to do, what sermons are going to come up, what different things we're going to cover, we'll discuss it a bit as a staff team. We'll kind of throw it around in a staff meeting, think through a few different ideas. Then Steve wonderfully goes away, prays, reflects, thinks about it, and puts together this incredible rota. And normally what happens is a little notification pops up that says that the rota is now available. Now, I don't know about anyone else on the staff team, but all I'm interested in is where it says Matt Porter. That's what I want to know. What am I doing? What's going on? So I open the document and I'm thinking, yeah, we're going to do a series. I'm excited. Maybe it's going to be like, how does Jesus encourage us? And Matt's a great encourager. Great. Or how is Jesus generous? Oh, Matt's so generous. And I noticed this little title that says, how does Jesus soothe my anger? Matt Porter. Interesting. What do you do at that moment? You think, okay, why has Steve given me this particular one? Is it because he genuinely thinks I've got an anger problem and reckons that reflecting over the course of a good amount of time for the sermon will help me dig deeper and resolve some stuff? And you kind of play on that plays on your mind a little bit more than it might, and you think, and no, I'm okay, and I know I'm okay, and if you were in my situation, you'd probably know you're okay, because I've got all kinds of words to justify and tell you why I'm totally fine, why I don't really have too much of an anger problem. Maybe you're a bit like me. You say something like, look, I don't have an anger problem, but there are a few people. And that... Or you say, no, I don't have much of an anger problem. I mean, sometimes I get pretty upset about things, trivial things like the sport. I get pretty wound up about, why didn't they score that goal? But I don't have an anger problem. Maybe you say something like that. Maybe you say, sometimes I'm just a little bit frustrated, but I don't really have a problem. Do I? Do I have an anger problem? You maybe dwell on it as I did for a tiny bit more time. You think, no, I can't have an anger problem. Maybe a bit of frustration bubbling away, but not an anger problem. And the way I know this, and maybe you know this too, is that you think of a tower block. Think of a tower block, and there's 100 floors on the tower block. Right at the top, we're putting the angriest people, right? We're putting them right at the top. And like, Mother Teresa is always the given example. She's down at the bottom. You're thinking, where would I be? Okay, well, look, I can take out the first few of the floors. I never murdered anyone. I've never done anything like that. That's okay. So I'm not going to be on there. If I went onto Lindfield and I found 100 people, where would I be sitting? Maybe have a think about it now. Where would you be sitting? What key would you be getting? What floor would you be allowed to go to in the tower block? I'm thinking about it and evaluating it. I'm thinking, like somewhere between 20 and 40. I'm happy somewhere between 20 and 40. I'm not in the high numbers. 20 and 40. There must be some people who are much better than me. Maybe somewhere there. The issue is that my strong guess is you might have been putting yourself between 20 and 40. And if we went out onto the streets of Lindfield, Haywards Heath, the around that area, and we asked 100 people, and we said, where would you like to be in the tower block? Most people would put themselves between 20 and 40. They can't all be between 20 and 40. It doesn't work. All right. Do I maybe have a bit more of an anger problem than I realize? Do I need Jesus to do something about my anger? Swap the tower block for a town or a city. Town or a city, and every house has one key. And you get a key. It doesn't matter which house you live in, whether you live in the big house or the little house, whether you live on this street or that street. If you live within the city, you've got a key. You're a resident there. And the only qualification to live in the city is that you have to have one time in your life been unjustifiably angry or upset, either internally or externally. Who'd like a key? I reckon we could all have a key to what I'm labeling Angryville. You could all come and live in Angryville, and I could too. And actually, if we live in the city of Angryville, maybe we have a bit more of a problem than we normally dare to think, than we minimize down with our words. Maybe we do have an anger problem. How does Jesus soothe my anger? Matt Porter might actually be more applicable than I thought. Well, there's a famous character throughout movies and TV who has a particular angry problem. And we hopefully have a little video clip of one of the actors who plays that character talking about going on a preschool visit. Let's have a little watch, if we can, of the clip.
Hang out with the kid in the morning. And this is like my daughter, who's in preschool, has a little period of time where the parents come and they hang out with the kid in the morning. And this is last year. And this little boy, Nicholas, sat across the table from her, and I was coloring with her and doing the things you do with a preschool child.
Absolutely.
And he looked up at me and he said, Are you the Hulk? And I was like, well, no. And my daughter's like, yeah, he's the Hulk. And he said, can you turn into the Hulk? And I was like, she's like, do it, Daddy, do it. So I went, and he went, no.
Very good, thank you. If you don't know, he plays the Hulk who uncontrollably rages and gets angry. And I would like to suggest this evening that within each of us, there is that seed, that kind of root, where our anger, we might feel like, all I need to do is count to 10 or walk away from the situation. I would like to suggest that actually our anger problem is a bit deeper rooted than we thought. If we think about the scale of the problem, what we're going to do is, I'm going to spend just a few more minutes now thinking about the scale of the problem. I'm going to sing again, and then I'm going to try and think through the solution after we've sung. But if you think about the scale of the problem, we all qualify for Angryville. Let's take just a couple of case studies. I want to tell you about Wilma. She's 83 and she lives in Lindfield. Now, whenever I pick a name like this, I always like to have a name, but then I always get worried that maybe Wilma is amongst us. And I check on the Church Suite app that we don't have anyone in our church family called Wilma. Pretty sure we don't. But there's just an off chance that Wilma, aged 83, has walked in this evening. If that is the case, or she's your next door neighbor, I just picked the name randomly, okay? This is not actually Wilma. But Wilma is 83, and she's delightful. If you go over to Wilma's house, you will always be offered shortbread biscuits. Always. It's amazing. And she has a beautiful dog that she takes really good care of, an immaculate lawn. I mean, just a beautiful house, very generous, lovely, lovely person. You'd be delighted to meet her. And Wilma, though, has an adversary. It's a bit strong to call her adversary, but she's got a neighbour. And the neighbour does one small thing. The neighbour, each week when the bins go out, always, for some unexplained reason, puts the bin just slightly over Wilma's path. Just slightly. It's always slightly overflowing, just slightly in the way. And Wilma, aged 83, initially she spoke to him about it and said, oh, it's just a bit in my way, but it still keeps happening. It got better for a bit, but it still keeps happening. And every week, as we build up to bin night, Wilma, aged 83, goes through this thing of just feeling a bit anxious and annoyed and angry. Why can't he not just put the bin in the right place? Why can't he do that? That's Wilma, she's aged 83. Also in Lindfield is Bobby. He is aged 3. Bobby, aged 3, has a 1-year-old older brother, aged 4, and Bobby's brother occasionally comes and grabs Bobby's toy and takes it to the other room. And Bobby, a little bit less restrained than Wilma, just loses it. He'll try and hit Bobby, he'll try and scratch his brother, he'll try and attack him over the toy truck. Both of them have an issue going on inside of them. Both of them have anger and frustration that, a bit like the Hulk, sometimes they can't quite control. Now, Wilma, of course, is good at kind of masking it. If you went round to her house, she probably wouldn't talk to you about the neighbour. It's not that big a deal. But it's there, that seed, that root. Bobby's is much more obvious. But surely we would say, well, it's really not an issue. Surely Bobby just grows up, and if we give him the right environment and the right kind of tools and education, he can grow up to be a Wilma, and he can mask his anger, and he can be okay, so on and so forth. But actually, if we think about both those situations, and we push it, as Jesus would, to the nth degree, then we can see just how far and how actually quite shocking and black and dark our anger can go. See, Jesus makes this strange link in the Sermon on the Mount. He talks about anger and murder, and he kind of connects it as though there's like a thread running through. Like if I put a bell at the end that was murder, and I pull on the angry thread, that bell's going to ring. It's somehow connected. Well, for both, in that moment, this is not all that they're feeling, but some part of them, and maybe you can identify this in a moment when you felt really angry, you think, that person has so annoyed me, and is so bothersome, and is so in my way. If I had complete control, if I was God, if I could do absolutely anything, I would get rid of that person. I'd take them out of my life. Now, of course, you might start and say, well, I'd move them to Australia, or I'd put them far away. But then you think, no, they might be bothering someone else there. Ultimately, there's a little seed within us that says, if I knew there was no police, if there was no God watching, if I could just do it, in that moment, something in me says I would be justified to take the most extreme action and eliminate, kill even that person. Because I want to be king, and they're a threat to me. Jesus makes that extreme link. That seed within each of us. Apparently, our response time on anger is 1/4 of the time it takes to blink. So if you blink, you had 1/4 of that time to control your emotional response to anger in the most extreme situation. We can't do it. We can't fully be in control. We even have words for that, don't we? Maybe you've been, even with a really loved one, and they've done something that's just wound you up, and inside you thought, I could strangle them, I could kill them, I could eliminate them. Of course, you don't 2 minutes later think that or mean that, but that seed is within us. Hugh really helpfully a couple of weeks ago said that we live in a world of common grace. So we have things like the police to help us. We have structures and various things in place. We have one another. Maybe that you just feel a little bit unsafe, maybe a situation at home that you're nervous to go back to tonight. Let me encourage you that it would be absolutely right and justified to talk to someone about it here. Talk to me. Antonia was at the front as well. Just those feelings of someone in our life who's maybe very, very much out of control. Please don't let that go unmentioned or unnoticed. But for most of us, we might just be reflecting on our own internal thing, that problem, that seed within. I talked to Christina a little bit before I went on holiday. I've been away for a couple of weeks about this service. We were just planning and thinking about different things. And he said to me, what are you thinking? I said, well, one thought in my mind, Chris, is I'd love to get a giant heart, like a massive wooden heart, put it on the wall over here, and get a massive pot of paint and kind of attach it with a wire up here and swing it and smash it into the heart to kind of show the darkness and the spread of sin and the chaos that it caused. Chris was on the other end of the phone, and I heard a little pause. He said, "Have you talked to anyone else about doing that?" maybe think about it. So you have the visual of that, but imagine that big heart's up here, and the paint comes crashing into it. It's an angry word, it's a moment, it's just a second, but the damage, like that paint that would just kind of spread out, ripple down. Damage, damage, damage. Disease within us. I want to take just 90 seconds to say that every worldview out there, every religion recognizes some level of this problem. I tried to do a kind of comparison this week and do, as best I could, kind of a fair representation of what Islam, Hinduism, those kind of things might say when it comes to anger. Everyone recognizes this is a problem, this is something it needs dealing with. Take Islam, for example. It would say, yeah, anger, unrighteous anger, that's not right. You don't want to live that way. But actually, the solution is more meditation, is more self-control, there's more tight constraints. But we know, don't we, even the tightest of constraint can't stop that stray thought across our mind or that kind of richness of agony in our heart and anger. And how do you know? How do you evaluate whether one little thought that you kept to yourself, but really you kind of harbored that malice against someone? How do you weigh that and evaluate that? The Christian way is much more simple, much more radical. It says all of us have this problem, universal. All of us live in Angryville. All of us live under the curse of sin. And all of us need a radical, deep solution. Jesus says that radical solution is to cut out that old heart, to take the pair of scissors and extract it, and to put in a brand new one, to live Jesus' way. We'll think about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes' time. But first we're going to sing of the way that the gospel provides hope, even in the midst of this challenge. So as the music starts, we'll stand and sing again.